We want erections to live longer, not forever.
Yeah, we want them longer, but I think most people would probably be tapped out of their experience after about an hour. So 4 hours is a little much. But hey, you do you. Welcome back to another episode of Relations, a podcast where we focus on trying to provide you with some information to better your life, whether that's health, fitness, food, sex, relationships.
Anything.
We just want to come together, talk about things that interest us, that may interest you. My name is Dr. Tyler Hendricks.
And my name is Gabriel.
And we are here to start a new journey with you all.
Yeah.
Tonight, we're going to be focusing on a new reference that we have picked up within the last couple years. It's called the Penis Book.
Which is like a manual?
It's like a manual.
An encyclopedia, you can say.
Sure.
A variety of different knowledges about not just the penis.
Yeah. Men's health in general.
Men's health in general.
Yeah,
I read the book a few months ago, and now we are reviewing with you all.
Yeah. So as a physician, I read the book because it was written by a urologist. I work in men's health, and these topics, of course, are interesting, not only in my practice and what I do for work, but for myself as a man or a person with a penis. And so I think it definitely is something that any man can find as an asset or a person with a penis.
And we can all do it together, taking you along on this journey.
Yeah. The introduction starts with Dick, Dong, Putz, Schlong, Peter, Johnson, Skin Flute, Trouser Snake, Mr. Happy, Vlad the Impaler. Whatever you decide to call your member, there are many names, and none of them really justify the enormous capabilities and the complexities of
the penis.
The penis.
Yeah.
So this book is really going to highlight a lot of that information, but what it starts with, of course, is the basics. So chapter 1 really is going to highlight the anatomy and the important areas of the anatomy that I think everyone should kind of know. Do you remember any of the anatomical features?
The scrotum, the head.
Yep. The glands.
The head,
the shaft. So there's the main three, I guess you could say. And then the shaft is made up of 3 cylinders, which I actually talked about in a previous video, but it's going to be highlighted again in this book. So there are 3 main cylinders, 2 of which are full of these spongy material. And the spongy material is really important because it needs to be able to expand and contract, just like when we are flaccid versus erect. Some people used to think that maybe there's a bone inside of the boner because the name, of course.
But there's no
think
bone.
about it, right? So we're not dogs. There's actually a bone inside the dog's genitalia.
No way.
For men, we just have this very spongy material that gets filled up with blood. And of course, the more pressure that enters that spongy cylinder, the more firm the erection is going to be. So those are 2 of the cylinders, and then the third is going to be where the urethra comes through. And so that's made of a different material that's not going to get hard when it floods with blood flow because, of course, as you may know, it's very difficult to urinate when you have an erection.
That's true.
So this would not be a good place for blood to fill up or to become too rigid because that could prevent urinate. Can you imagine not being able to urinate? It's already hard enough to hold your urine. Not a good experience.
It's funny that there's no bones in the penis because sometimes it's as hard as the bone, or as firm as the bone.
That's true, and that is the point, right? It needs to get filled with that fluid, which is blood, for us as humans as quickly as possible, because usually you're not, trying to wait around when an erection is needed. You need to get one quickly. Think of the penis as like a balloon. As it's filling up with blood, it's pressing and compressing these very thin veins. And as you may know, if you're in medicine or in healthcare, veins are very flimsy. That's their point. They should be very flexible and easily compressed, whereas arteries are hard and they need to be rigid so that high blood flow can kind of plummet through there. And so as the balloon expands, your erection expands, it occludes those veins. So then the veins can't draw that blood back from the penis. Thus, you can maintain your erection. This is where some men have problems with erectile dysfunction. As we get older, our veins are already flimsy. So as we age and you add things like coronary artery disease or heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, that's going to also damage veins, making it much more difficult for them to respond to that pressure. You think maybe they're getting more flimsy as we get older, so they'll be more easily occluded. It's actually the opposite. As they get damaged, those veins calcify and they're much less responsive to the pressure when you're building an erection. And so they just allow that blood to come right out of the genitals or the penis, so you can't maintain the erection. Right. So the blood doesn't stay. And this becomes a huge problem as we get older, especially those that are sedentary, those that are obese. These are things that can compound over time. And so I have some men men who I treat that are, older, maybe in their 70s or 80s, and they're like, I've tried every ED medicine, I'm on testosterone, I just can't get an erection. And unfortunately, that's just the consequences of a meat-based diet and a sedentary lifestyle that accumulate over time.
They can get an erection, but sometimes their difficulty is to maintain it.
Exactly. This is kind of physiologically what's happening, right? The brain, the blood flow is moving things into the genitals, but they can't keep it. What else is really interesting about the anatomy of the genitalia, especially for men, is that we have all these muscles that sort of surround the area. You can think of them as kind of supporting us whenever we ejaculate, is what I most commonly think of. As you're ejaculating, you can kind of feel that tense pressure sort of pulling or kind of throbbing. Those are really important with maintaining the abilities of creating an erection. And if you're going at it and you want to add a little extra thrust, that's usually the muscle you're going to be stimulating.
And we teach the Kegel exercise here in the videos in the channel. We give an explanation. Maybe we should do it again just to remind people to keep doing Kegel exercises. Kegel exercises are very easy, something you can do it at home, something you can do right now, anytime, and they will help you long term with your ejaculation, with your erections.
That's right.
So many things.
Yeah, it also can help prostate health. It can help with urination stream. So you got to remember that all the muscles in our body need some sort of physical activity. So Kegels, like you mentioned, you can do them literally sitting, literally anywhere. No one's going to know unless you tell them.
I'm doing Kegel exercises right now.
A lot of men out there who are experiencing symptoms of erectile dysfunction, especially if they're older, it's due to a blockage in the tiny, tiny micro vessels of the genitalia. These blood vessels are so tiny, they're actually about 1 millimeter in size on average, and they're 5 times smaller than the vessels of our heart. So this is why they also say that for men that experience erectile dysfunction, this could be the first indicator that a heart attack is not far away. This is something a little bit hazy though, because a lot of men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that have ED, it's usually more of a hormonal problem, so low testosterone, or it's from anxiety, depression, mental health. Exactly. It's not usually cardiovascular, but if you're experiencing these symptoms abruptly in your 50s, 60s, 70s,
that
that's
could be a sign that
sign, right?
all the parts of our body are connected, right? The penis, which they call the small head, it's connected to, the rest of the body. And if you're having symptoms of erectile dysfunction, that could be a sign that you have other issues going on.
Exactly. That's always why it's important to have a relationship with your provider where you feel comfortable talking to them. That's another example too. Like if you have a primary doctor who you love and you're very close with, maybe they see the other members of your family, it's probably not super easy to talk to them about ED or sex health. So maybe it's a good idea to get a men's health doctor to have on the side, or a secondary primary doctor who can kind of be someone of a window that you can at least talk to about some of these issues, because you have to talk to someone about them. You want to make sure you're not missing something and that these things don't compound or that worsen over time.
One of the great things about telemedicine too, like you mentioned, going to a doctor and talking about those issues, it's for a lot of people, it's something that it's very private and they don't want to talk to their doctor who sees other members of their family. So the beauty of telemedicine is be able to see someone who, you technically don't know, you're not vulnerable to this person and in person, so you can talk to them in a space that you feel more comfortable and get those issues addressed.
Yeah, that's why I really love telemedicine, especially for the sexual health aspect of healthcare, because again, there is a lot of stigma, there is a lot of taboo around having these discussions. And so putting layers, whether it's a video call or a phone call or sending messages, can really be adjusted to the patient's comfort level. Maybe messaging your doctor is not the best way for everyone to receive care, but some people that's going to be the best for them. And for others, it's going into the doctor and having a more physical experience. So everybody's different, and there's many different options for everyone out there. And so that's the beauty of having so many options and resources at your fingertips. Just got to pick which ones you want to use for yourself. When we think too about circulation, what's so interesting is they're lined by all of this muscle, all these muscle cells that can control how wide or how narrow they are. And those are innervated. So nerves go into those muscle cells and then determine what's going to happen with the blood flow. This is why we think of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic being the stress, parasympathetic being relax. They're in constant flux in our body, and they're very important for us to achieve an erection.
Is that fight or flight instinct that we have?
Exactly.
that comes from, hunting gatherers.
Right.
When there's
So
danger around, we lose our erection, right?
exactly.
But our brain doesn't know what is the stress, right? So sometimes it's just anxiety, but we ended up losing our erection
Right.
because of this stress going on in our brain.
Exactly. That's so why it's so complicated, right? Because if you can imagine, our sympathetic nervous system is helping us get away from a tiger, so it's
Right.
going to shut down your erection. But it also needs to be in place for you to ejaculate. So you still need that sympathetic nervous system to be working accurately in that aspect. Same and contrary, you need your parasympathetic. You need to be relaxed in order to maintain or gain an erection. But you need that excitement or that jolt of the sympathetic in order to shoot, so to speak. So they're
It's a
very,
balance.
exactly, they're constantly in balance. And one of the most easy ways to throw them off balance is either mental health or hormonal. So low testosterone or
Wow.
issues with anxiety are going to completely put those normal systems out of whack.
But it's reversible.
Everything is.
Lifestyle changes,
Yes.
diet,
Yes.
all of those things can help you to, address those issues.
Yeah. And if you're not really sure, where to get started with something like that, talk to your doctor. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
What next they talk about is the importance of something called nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is released by the nerves that go to those muscle cells that go around the blood vessels that tell them to either dilate or constrict. So you may have heard eating nitrate-rich foods is really helpful to preserve your erections and your genital
Wow.
health, but not only that, your whole cardiovascular health. This is why a lot of cardiologists say eat lots of beets, eat lots of kale, green
Those are
leafy
foods
vegetables.
rich in
Yes.
nitrate.
Yes. So it's
That's-
mostly going to be food that's found from the ground.
So it's lots of beets, lots of broccoli, lots of veggies, so you can get better erections.
Yeah, so nitrates are key to the health of our cardiovascular system and our genitalia. So pump up the veggie intake. I know there's a lot of supplements out there that are nitrogen based, and you can have pre-workout that has there in it as well. Just go for what the earth made for you. It's the most easily accessible,
healthier, and
so that's my opinion, but whatever works for you.
So the ED medications, do they have anything to do with the nitric oxide?
Medications like sildenafil, tadalafil, the generic versions of Viagra and Cialis, and what they do is they work on an enzyme called phosphodiesterase 5. That is the enzyme that breaks down that nitric oxide indirectly. There's a few complicated processes happening, but basically you're right. Those ED medicines, their goal is to maintain that nitric oxide as long as possible so you can have a longer erection. And then after you ejaculate, usually that is such a strong stimuli for your brain and for the rest of your body, it shuts down all that ED medication, and you can allow yourself to relax.
Can you have erection that lasts longer than you expected?
Yes, if you have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours, this is likely a big issue and you should contact your doctor right away. But if you can't get a hold of them, you should go to the ER, because an erection lasting more than 4 hours starts to damage the tissues. Because again, like I mentioned, the blood is coming in, but it can't leave. And so basically, you'll probably start seeing it turn bruisey, bluish, purplish, and that's the consequence of having an erection too long. Typically, though, ED medications aren't going to cause that, even if you take too many of them. That being said, please do not try that. It's actually crazy. Even as a physician, I didn't realize the complexity of what needs to happen for an erection to occur.
A lot of different processes.
So many chemicals going up and down your spine, going from your spine to your genitalia and back. And if one of those pieces is broken, it can throw off the whole process.
That's why it's so hard to tell what's the cause of erectile dysfunction, because it could be so many factors.
Right.
It could be multiple.
Exactly. You can have a situation where you've damaged your spine and you're still able to produce an erection, but you can't feel the erection. You can have damage to other areas of your brain where you feel the erection and can orgasm.
The big head and the small head are working together to, make the vessel happy.
You have read this book before.
I have some knowledge too when it comes to men's health. We've been practicing in the last year with lots of, knowledge and science.
That's true. You've picked it up. And then the book also talks about our ignition switch, which is something that a lot of my patients ask me about, because they're like, how do I get to feeling ready? I'm losing this sort of stimulation. I'm losing the urge to want to start with my partner. And this happens to us. Sometimes it happens to us in our 20s, like for myself. Sometimes it happens in your 30s, sometimes in your 80s. And so trying to figure out what that could be or what the cause is kind of difficult because, again, there are many different reasons. Sometimes it can be hormonal. Like for myself, you can have low testosterone. That's going to damage your abilities. Sometimes it's just reviewing the five senses. All of those things come into play. And if one is off, like if you smell something off, it can completely shut down mission control. If you taste something that's off, it can completely shut down mission control. And both of these things can be good. Usually our senses are trying to tell us something, hey, this may not be a good idea. But if you have an aversion to garlic and the person you're with had, some garlic bread for lunch, maybe you also enjoy garlic bread, but it turns you off and you can't move forward. And that's how sensitive and how fragile creating an erection can be for some people.
You have to be with your mindset that you might sense things outside of your expectation, and you just have to be focused and energized for the encounter that you're having.
Yeah, I mean, this is just on a good day. Imagine if you throw in stress, anxiety, depressed. Maybe you got a lot going on at work. Maybe you're exhausted from the workout you just had.
Testosterone.
Maybe you have low T. You put all those things together, and it's surprising to me that anyone can receive an erection. So you just have to do your best, like we all do. So if you are frustrated, if you're concerned, if you're not sure, the first thing you want to do is make sure you're not warming yourself up towards more anxiety, towards more stress.
Because that can lead you to more stress, more anxiety. If you're not able to perform well while having sex, you are even less confident in yourself, and that becomes a snowball.
Right. So if first things first, take a breath, take a deep breath, realize you're not alone, talk to a doctor, get some resources, whether online, start reading this book, reassure yourself you're just fine, and more erections are in your future, whether that means talking to a doctor to get there or just doing some relaxation tips to get there yourself. But either way, you're going to be fine. This book's going to help guide you all the way through. And if not, we will guide you all the way through because that's what we're here for.
Because we are going chapter by chapter.
Chapter by chapter.
We're going to go through this amazing encyclopedia of our penis. Because we all got one.
Well,
at least
half of us.
Half of us.
We hope you enjoyed the first chapter of the penis book because there are quite a few left. So again, we're going to put a link to the book in our description in case you want to purchase one and follow along, or you can just take a listen because we're going to try and do the highlights for you here. But let us know if you have any questions on chapter 1. What are some terminology or issues that you've had following along with us? We're happy to discuss those.
And thank you for watching once again. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel, like this video, share, post. You know what to do. We don't know. We don't need to say. So thank you for following us with us. And we'll see you for another chapter of the book. I love all the nicknames that you mentioned. You can add pau, cacete, caralho. Those are in Portuguese.
There's many different names. I'm sure you have your own favorite. You can leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you call your own personal appendage.